JFK, Time for the Truth, Part 3. I won't comb the evidence here as I did with Jack and Bobby, but notice that JFK Jr. was supposedly cremated. Convenient, since it dodges any future disinterment. Even the ashes were buried at sea. In a very unusual ceremony, Jr. was not a sailor and had never been in the Navy. It is as if the Kennedys were afraid the ashes might be DNA checked later. So we have both the cremation and the swallowing of them by the sea, in a double careful effort to remove all evidence. Beyond this, it is curious to say the least that the Pentagon took control of the crash scene and all the press relation from the beginning. Conspiracy theorists have taken this as proof that the government was involved in an assassination, but the government would also be involved in a fake death. We know we have a cover-up, but it is the government covering up a murder, or is it the covering up of the lack of any bodies? If we were only seeing the cover-up of a murder here, there would be no reason to hide the body and then cremate it. If the fuel line was tampered with, for instance, and the government only needed to hide that fact, hiding the body is unnecessary. It is even counterproductive since it causes suspicion. A government that has murdered JFK Jr. would be quickly to show the body as proof he was dead. They would not be trying to hide the fact, but promote it. They would only be trying to hide the evidence of foul play. No, the logical reason to play cat and mouse with the body is because you don't really have a body. We see the same sort of games with Jr. that we saw with Sr. Since we see very strange games being played with the body, we should begin our questioning by questioning whether there is a body. Beyond that, we have lots of other misdirections. On the web, we have several films proposing that the Bushes are responsible for the death of JFK Jr. Some propose that George Sr. did, and others propose that Jr. did it. There are promoted videos linked from that certain date and time, the true sites, so I have seen them and given them a fair look. These videos tell us that both Bushes were unaccounted for in the days surrounding the death, implying they had no alibis or something like that. This is that both Bushes so ridiculous it's difficult to imagine how it made it into publication. Are these documentations suggesting that the Bushes were the actual triggermen or missile men, or supposing that the plane was sabotaged? Are we to imagine that one of the Bushes pulled the hose himself or cut the line himself? I think that if the Bushes had wanted to have Jr. killed, they would have hired someone to do it. I hear they have some money and connections. To call in a hit like that, you don't have to leave town for 3 days, travel across the country, cancel appointments, act like a spy, and call attention to yourself. All you have to do is make a phone call. I almost hate to spoil this for you, but even JFK Jr.'s saluting photo is purposely misinterpreted. Look where the sun is in the picture. Junior isn't saluting, he's just shading his eyes from the bright sun. If you watch the film of that moment, it is clear. Only in the still photos does he appear to be saluting. What about Teddy Kennedy? Was he a youngest brother left out? Or was he the Sentinel Legion, the visible enforcer of the invisible mob boss, only pretending to be drunk and Marlaws? Or was he in fact the king, hiding in plain sight? No, Bobby lived until 1999 and Teddy never got his turn. By the time Bobby died, Teddy was not interested in living underground. He wanted to live out his life in the Senate, doing nothing. But concerning Chebeterdix, we have more clues. There, Teddy was the fall guy covering for someone else. Remember that this was the summer of 1969, only a year after Bobby's fake death? Mary Jo Coppinger had been a campaign worker for Bobby, and she was very attractive, thin and blonde, just what Bobby liked. There is now a picture of her on the internet with Bobby and the Boiler Room girls. The other young women look uncomfortable, but she looks very comfortable, even wifeish. What probably happened is that Mary Jo, after one too many gin and tonics at the party, threatened to tell the world the Kennedys were not dead, and that is what the one sin not pardoned. Bobby himself was present at the reunion party, since this was Kennedy's territory, very remote and protected. None of the others at the party had ever said a word, and this is hardly surprising since they didn't want to end up like Mary Jo. Mary Jo was killed for the same reason Marilyn Monroe was. She couldn't keep her mouth shut after the sex had ended, and she was left to her pills and booze. Of course, there is also the possibility they just relocated her. As JFK had wanted Mary Pennant Meyer underground with him, maybe RFK wanted Mary Jo Coppinger underground with him. Teddy has nothing to do with the affair until they had to use his car. The ever-present spooks, CIA or Secret Service, did her in, but decided at the last minute to use the car as the cover. They were very remote and didn't really have a lot of choices in automobiles to drive into the lake, since Mary Jo hysteria was last minute. It was likely the murder and the cover-up were last minute and not well thought out. At last it was decided that Teddy should take the fall since he was best able to take it. He had no real connections to Mary Jo, so none could ever be dredged up. No matter how much investigation there was, they only had to explain why this car was there, and they came up with a story that would do that, while making him seem like only a blumber or a drunk. Of course, Teddy was never in the car, so he didn't have to swim out of it or any of that nonsense. The spooks drove it into the water, not Teddy. As a Kennedy, he was able to avoid the mandatory sentence for failing to report an accident, and the family never lost control of the story beyond that. If you want to hear the remainder of the story, I recommend visiting the website by a man named Milo Mathis. If you would like to learn so many more factual truths that we have been lied to about, I suggest you check out his page and thousands of articles. It is truly mind-blowing. Like I said, how they are related, he does an amazing job proving this with genealogy. From fake deaths to made-up murders and serial killers to politics to Taylor Swift, the prick, the Oscar slap, OJ trial, Tate murders, basically everything we have been taught is a lie. He does an amazing job using only facts. Now, of course, there are a few things I would argue with, but again, that is a very few. His website is milomathis.com. Once there, click on Writings and then choose any of his essays. I would love to meet this man one day because I feel he is the one of the very few people in this world who really is about truth and not just a puppet repeating what everyone else says. Why I stopped where I did was because I was mostly interested in showing the truth behind JFK and how his son was the mastermind behind that day in 2001. And who is now the puppet taking his orders from below? The Orange Man. I mean, come on, folks. When do we stop being ignorant of the facts? A Kennedy just happens to die right before an election. That is why they had baby JJ die right before the Bush election, not only to guarantee that Bush would win, because we all know that Bushes can be tied all the way back to JFK. I mean, there are even pictures of Bush at the parade that day in Dallas. But it also lets you know that he took off where his Uncle Bobby left. And in fact, it was baby JJ who was 100% the mastermind behind that day. Being ignorant at this point is just to say you don't care, to know truth. I mean, it's like accepting the fact that only all the cameras were down at only 3 airports that day in 2001, but all other airport cameras were fine. That is just one of the 10,000 unexplained things that day. Or to be ignorant to the fact that Child Sniffer won over Orange Guy when everywhere you went the yards were flooded with Make America Great signs. Seriously. And in no way does that mean I support the Orange Man. I just knew why Sniffy Child Man had to be selected for the next 4 years. I mean, make America trash again so that Orange Man can come in and save the day and once again be deceived into believing he is the good guy, and everyone will believe and follow every word he says just like they planned. Look at how amazing still to this day people have been deceived into believing a guy like JFK was a hero, a legend, such an amazing guy. I mean, how does that saying go today? Oh yes, I bet a man that truly God chooses and uses. When in fact he was the sickest, most Satanist man alive. When in fact it was his sick Satanist son who was the mastermind behind that day. So when I sit here and say that you are being deceived 1000%, I am believing T is on your side when clearly they are laughing in your face by even having little baby JJ showing up at his rallies. They are 2 peas in the same pod, and yes, this world is just one big fake staged event, controlled by Satan and his Satanist Antichrist spirits, who only care is power and control in themselves. So nothing new under the sun, just the only difference is I'm hoping more and more people wake up and don't fall for the same lies again. But again, who am I kidding? This is not a game, people. It is almost up, and all Satan wants is to take as many souls with him because we already know God wins. I strongly recommend reading Milo's writing so you can truly see how sick this really goes. It is time we stop believing in any man, especially a prideful man who has shown nothing but love for himself and support to the false God, not the one true God and one true Son of God, Jesus Christ. Yes, I too fell for this. I even leave pictures of my support for him on my Facebook page so that people can't say I'm saying all this because I support the sniffing kid sniffer. No, I understand he is just a puppet as well, playing his role like the rest of them. But you need to understand, it is one big staged event, Satan's final play, and everyone is an actor playing their part. Even the Christian industry is in on it as well. We must not let ourselves fall for any of man's lies. I am working on the final video called Satan's Final Plan. I strongly hope you take the time to listen to it. This is going to be the final warning to God's holy elect. God bless you all.